So, George Corpsegrinder Fisher has finally gotten around to releasing a solo album, and I'm here to talk about it. I mean, you know, let's be honest, it's why you clicked on the video. There's no other reason we would have done that, is there? This album has been a long time coming. For those of you who aren't aware, Jamey Jasta co-produced this album along with Nick Bellmore, and Jamey Jasta, of course, is a very enthusiastic guy, shall we say. He's quite an inspirational dude. I like Jamey Jasta a lot. I listen to his podcast all the time, and he's one of those guys who, when he thinks of doing something, he goes out and does it. He's a doer. I like hearing stuff like that. It makes me realise how, you know, just I do nothing really. The reason I bring this up is because working with George Corpsegrinder Fisher, I'll just call him. Do I call him Corpsegrinder or George? Is George a bit too formal? Corpsegrinder, I don't know. Saying Corpsegrinder all the time though as well, that kind of seems a bit. Jamie's wanted to work with George for a long time, so this album has been long anticipated, I think. Jamey, of course, has already done an album years ago with Dee Snider, of which I did a review, and Jamey was very involved in that album, as he is in this one. I bring that up for reasons I'll go into later on in the review. George, of course, no, I can't call him George. Corpsegrinder is, of course, from the legendary Cannibal Corpse, a band that I absolutely adore, and Jamey, of course, is from Hatebreed, another band that I don't know if I'd go as far as to say I adore Hatebreed, but I do enjoy Hatebreed a lot. This album is definitely a culmination of both of those bands. This album is packed full of death metal, hardcore, and thrash. Let's quickly go through the lineup. Of course, we've got George Corpsegrinder Fisher on vocals. Playing both guitar and bass, we have Charlie Bellmore, who used to be in Toxic Holocaust, and he also played on the Dee Snider solo album, along with his brother, Nick Bellmore, who plays drums, and he also played in Toxic Holocaust and the Dee Snider solo project, which he also produced along with this album with Jamey Jasta. And the album is going to be released via Jamey's new record label, Perseverance Media Group. In terms of a lineup, it's actually, you know, pretty small crew. The only other notable mention is Erik Rutan, of course, from Cannibal Corpse and Hate Eternal, who turns up on the first track, Acid Vat. As I've already discussed the production, I think it's worth pointing out that I found straight away that this definitely had a very Hatebreed feel to it, both in terms of the production and a lot of the hardcore riffs, of course. And yeah, there's I'll get into more of that later on, but I thought I was bringing it up straight away. That was the first thing that really stood out to me, was the production sound on it. It's very similar to a lot of Hatebreed stuff. I've got a sneaking suspicion this is going to be one of those albums a lot of people are going to either defend with their lives, or it's going to be one of those ones that people are going to find it quite easy to shit on needlessly. And so I'd like to just point out that as well, you know, if you're expecting a Cannibal Corpse level album, then this ain't it. But if you go into this, expect some hardcore, expect a lot of hardcore on this album, and I think you might enjoy it a lot more. But anyway, enough of that, we're going to go into the songs now. So the first song on the album is also the first single from the album, Acid Vat, and this one features Erik Rutan, as I mentioned earlier on, and this was a wise move to put this one out first, because this is definitely one of the strongest songs on the album. I really enjoyed this track. Pretty much gives you a good indicator of what you're getting into. Plenty of death metal, for sure. Plenty of tremolo picked lines. I really enjoyed the chugging riff that goes behind the chorus. It just sounded, oh God, it's so satisfying. A real breakdown outro. Get used to that, because you'll be hearing that a lot on the album. And George Corpsegrinder sounds awesome. He sounds like Corpsegrinder all throughout the album, and it's great. Bottom Dweller's up next, and this one had a very Hatebreed like intro into it, but some really impressive drumming from Nick. This was a really cool song, and this is a problem that I had with a few of the songs on this. As I was listening to it, I couldn't help but hear in my mind Jamey Jasta singing these lyrics instead of Corpsegrinder. It wasn't just the songs, it wasn't just the structure of the songs, it was the cadence of the lyrics as well. It's there was a few too many times I could picture Jamey doing this. A particular highlight was Corpsegrinder growling, "You fucking bottom dweller," before going into a section that I thought was going to get a bit more technical, but dare I say it, kind of ended up being more of a generic hardcore riff. The next song though is awesome, On Wings of Carnage. slow chugging riff with some really great double bass work from Nick. The slower hardcore riffs worked really well on this song, but some of the lead playing fell a little bit flat. I mean, you're never going to get it on par with the guys in Cannibal, but you know, nitpicking a little bit there maybe. But that being said, I did enjoy this song a lot. Next up is All Souls Get Torn, and this one started out with a really dirty, detuned riff, and there was a scream on this from Corpsegrinder that was very reminiscent of Devoured by Vermin, which would many of us would have been our first introduction to George. Corpsegrinder, before going into some much more frantic thrash-like riffing and some Slayer-esque style lead playing. Fast-paced and in your face, this was one of the better songs on the album, but yet again I kind of felt a little bit let down by the hardcore outro. Death is the Only Key is up next, and this was more of a slow-paced chugger, kind of in the vein of Scourge of Iron or Code of the Slashers, but through a hardcore filter. Very enjoyable and a real tough one not to headbang to. Crimson Proof is up next, and this one starts out hardcore as fuck before going into one of the better fast-paced riffs on the album that pretty much maintains the rest of the song. Devourer of Souls was then up next, a mid-paced chugger with these huge power chords that ring out and then going into some tremolo picked lines. Yet again, some really good double bass work from Nick on this one. Next up, we get Defined by Your Demise. There's no running from the punishment coming, George growls throughout this song. Corpsegrinder. I'm running out of ways to describe these songs, I think, because they all do have a kind of a similar vibe. Penultimate song is Master of the Longest Night. This one had an eerie intro that brought to mind Slayer before bringing in those hardcore influences and some of the thrashier elements of early death metal. Another decent enough breakdown section to see us out, but yet again, I don't know, there's some of the breakdown sections on here get a little too samey, and you know, there's a couple of times on this I was like, have I heard this before on this album? And then we finish off with a total banger, Vaguely Human. This is like 2 minutes of just all out in your face, fast paced death metal, thrash metal, hardcore, it all combined. Just George going ape shit. He just sounds great on this one. This is a really, really strong finish to the album. I enjoyed this one a lot. I enjoyed this album for the most part. I really did. I mean, you have to kind of take it for what it is. You know, it's Jamey Jasta's version of a death metal album. That's probably one of my issues with this, I think, is the fact that it's a Corpsegrinder solo album, because in many ways it isn't. It's Jamey Jasta. It's a Jamey Jasta album. More than anything, his style is stamped all over it, which, you know, fair enough. As I said, I enjoyed it for the most part, but there was quite a few songs on this where I could almost hear Jasta singing instead of Corpsegrinder. You know, in my head, I could just hear those vocal cadences. Some of the breakdown sections, while enjoyable, a lot of them, some of them did get a bit samey. I mean, almost to the point of like feeling like I'd already heard them earlier on in the album. But George Corpsegrinder sounds great throughout all of this. I mean, he's always a pro. He just sounds great. The instrumentation was actually really good. I mean, if you're expecting Cannibal Corpse levels of, you know, technicality, then you know, you're not going to get it on that. It's much more simplistic, but that doesn't mean it's bad. Nick and Charlie, is it? Yeah, both of them did a fantastic job on their instruments. Nick, there was a few parts in this album I was really impressed with the drum work. There's some pretty cool riffs throughout all of this. Of course, Erik Rutan, Acid Vat, it was great to hear him on that. That's probably the best song on the album, I think. Other than the last actual song, I've really enjoyed that one as well. In terms of score, I'd give this a solid 7 out of 10. It is still fun. It is a great listen. The more I listen to it, the more I enjoy it. You know, if you kind of just take it for what it is and enjoy it, there is actually a lot to enjoy on this album. Just to make sure that I wasn't being too much of an arsehole, I actually went and listened to last year's Violence Unimagined directly after my last listen of this album, just to see if, you know, am I making things up here? And it kind of did confirm a few things. As good as some of the songs were on here, there was nothing that really got my blood boiling, though, as much as, say, the opening riff to Murderous Rampage, or that breakdown section from Inhumane Harvest, you know, that dirty, oh my god, you know, those riffs that just give you that skank face. Despite all those criticisms, though, I still had a lot of fun with this album. It's definitely one that I will return to at some point. So a solid 7 out of 10. There's a lot to enjoy on here. I'll be back hopefully soon with my review of the new Rosalie Cunningham album. What else is there? There's potentially a new Foo Fighters album coming out, which I would like to check out. It's supposed to be Dave Grohl's ode to thrash metal, or well, no, I think it's to do with his upcoming horror film Studio 666. Despite what a lot of people say, I actually, I respect Dave Grohl and his metal credentials, so I don't give a fuck if he's in the Foo Fighters. I think they've done some good songs, and he's a metalhead at heart. We all know he is. So I might, I would like to review that album when it comes out. And also, I got sent an album by a band, Evande. Not sure if it's called, and I will be reviewing that soon. I'm not sure if they're unsigned actually. It's on Solitude Productions. I'm not sure if they're an unsigned band or not, but yeah, I'm going to be checking that out and doing a review of that soon. As usual, if you made it this far, drop a like, drop a comment. It all helps to boost the video, it really does. So your support would be greatly appreciated. And I will be back very soon with another album review. Nothing more to say.